Hey everyone, welcome to the Hey Hannah podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Maya Fields, but to my friends and those who know me well, I'm just Maya. I'm a higher education administrator, a mother, and a wife of 14 amazing years. But above all, I'm a Christ follower. This podcast is a special platform created to honor the memory of my beloved daughter, Hannah. It's here that I have the chance to have the conversations that I never got to have with her, to share the wisdom and love I wish I could have passed on. It's a reminder to cherish the precious moments we're given and a testament to the power of healing, hope, and personal growth. If you're someone who's seeking personal growth, inspiration, and practical advice to build a solid foundation for a successful and fulfilling life, this is the place for you. Join me as we honor Hannah's memory together. Laugh, cry, and learn. Get ready for a podcast that is so much more than you could ever imagine. The Hey Hannah podcast, healing hearts, one conversation at a time. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter. This is a quote by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and I chose to open today's episode with this powerful quote because it's going to address something that matters deeply to all of us. And it's often an issue that can be cloaked in silence, misconception, and denial. And we're talking about human trafficking. Too often we believe that this issue couldn't possibly affect us or our loved ones. We often say sometimes, well, this could never happen to me. We mistakenly assume it's distant, removed, or even exaggerated. But today we're here to dispel those myths. Human trafficking is real. It happens closer than we realize, and it thrives in silence. In this episode, we're not just breaking the silence, we are shattering it. You'll hear firsthand from someone who's lived through this unimaginable experience and emerged as a powerful advocate and voice of hope. We'll learn how to recognize the sign, protect our communities, and understand the reality that no one is immune. So let's start this critical conversation by reflecting on one crucial question. What if your voice could set someone free? Our guest today is Sherri Lopez. Sherri was groomed at the age of 15 by her high school boyfriend's father, trafficked for 7 years, and rescued by a woman named Pearl at an apartment mailbox. She is the founder of the nonprofit Pearl at the Mailbox and is on a mission to educate about child grooming, how it happens, and how to spot and stop it before trafficking happens. Sherri boldly shares her journey to raise awareness, address how predators use social media apps to connect with children, and explains how to have a healthy online profile. Sherri is an advocate for children, a grooming prevention educator, a survivor mentor, a speaker, and an author. She also works to change laws to hold predators accountable in Arizona and at the federal level. So Sherri, thank you so much for being here with us. We are just honored to have you today.
Thank you so much for the invitation. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we have so much to jump into, but I want to start with first, can you just tell us a little bit about your story?
Sure. And I have to share up front, it took me at least 25 years before I had the courage to be able to share what happened.
Yeah.
And a lot of it's because I had to process what happened to me
Mm.
and understand it. So I was just a normal 15-year-old kid. I came from a solid, structured two-parent home. I was the middle of three girls, but I was just lost. As all teens, we're trying to find our place in the world, and those teenage years are so hard. So I had created a small group of friends during my middle school years. And because our high school was on the cutoff line of high schools, the majority of my friends were going to go to a different high school. And for me, that was really traumatic. It was very traumatic, in fact. And I was very nervous about going to high school and being a year behind my older sister who excelled at everything. And I
Mhm.
knew I was going to be compared to her. And that's exactly what happened. Very first day of high school, one of the teachers said, "Oh, you're so and so's sister." And I looked at that person, that teacher, like, you know what? My name is Sherri, and I'm going to disappoint you. And I took a seat in the back of the room. And quickly, the teachers realized that I was gonna disappoint. So, already being an insecure, shy child, that just knocked me down another peg. I wasn't good enough. I didn't have any value. I didn't have any worth, which a lot of kids put on themselves, but parents don't realize that because kids silently carry that with themselves. And parents need to have those conversations about just a child's value and worth. So I met Carl. It's a made up name I gave him in my book. And I met him in the drama department. And I look back now and I always ask people when I speak in person, if you worked on a production, you have to help build the set. So there
Yeah.
this one weekend we were building the set and I was just painting a piece of wood. But you know how you have somebody that's kind of you could tell somebody's staring at you? Now I look back and he is. And I ask people, what do you think I was thinking when he looked at me? And I get all these various responses. Oh, he thought you were cute or he liked you. And I'm like, no, I thought I was doing something wrong because of the pecking order.
Yeah.
He was a football player, he was popular, he had a lot of friends, and there was just me. I thought I was painting wrong.
Yeah.
And that just shows the insecurity that I had. Well, Carl's job by his father was to recruit insecure kids like me. And that's what he did. And so, over a 3-month period, I was introduced to Carl's father and then slowly manipulated, excuse me, mentally. That's what a groomer does. It's the mental
Yeah.
manipulation, getting a hold of the child's mind, slowly introducing topics that make their parents seem stupid, like their parents don't care about you, they don't love you, they don't want you around. And the groomer is, in my case, we want you around. We like having you here at these parties. Everybody likes you. And so they were feeding a very shattered child what I needed to
Yeah.
hear. Everything that I shared in confidence with Carl, because I truly thought Carl was my boyfriend.
Mhm.
Never had a boyfriend before, so I didn't know what to expect. I didn't have any brothers, so I didn't understand boy language. So I really thought that he was my boyfriend because he hung out with me. Little did it at the time register with me that when we were at the parties, Carl would always disappear, and it would be the father and the father's friends that would hang out with me. And of course, there were a bunch of other people at the parties, not just us.
Yeah.
One issue that really was important to me and our family is that we didn't have a boy to carry on the family name. And I talked about that a lot. So Carl's father used that to fill a big, big void in my life. And he says, I'll become the brother you never had. Well, okay, great. He's reeling me in. He's reeling me in just like you're reeling in a fish, little by little,
Yeah.
saying all these things that I needed to hear to make me feel complete and accepted and loved. Because I really didn't, it's not that I didn't feel those things at home. It's just my parents were very busy, like parents are now. So parents come home and they wanna rest and have dinner and relax, and my parents told me years later that they really thought there was nothing wrong in our home because if myself and my sisters were not killing each other, everything was okay. They really thought everything was okay, but, it wasn't. And so little by little, I would have to go to these parties starting on a Friday night for a couple of hours. And I had a good friend that lived across the field from where we lived. She, my parents knew her and her parents really well, so they never doubted where I said I was at, even
Mhm.
though I really wasn't there. And so she was the ruse to get me to go to these parties on a Friday night and then stay Friday night. And eventually I was gone the whole weekend at these parties. And my parents never asked me, why are you there? Why so much time at her house? Because I just kept saying we were working on a big school project. And
Yeah.
parents believed me. So I was like, okay, parents, check up on your kids all the time. I don't care if they say they're at somebody's house that you know. Make sure you have the parent's phone number because a kid can leave
Yeah.
us behind. So Carl's father would continue to say things such as, do your mom and dad ever ask where you're at? No. See, they don't love you. They really want you gone. They're happier when you're not home. Why are you there? You're a big girl. We care about you here. They don't. They want you gone." And I believed this stuff. I believed
Yeah.
everything that they said to me because they were non-threatening.
Mhm.
They never hurt me. Granted, I saw a lot of things that I'd never seen before. I did have the taste of wine for the first time. But then there was a day towards the end of the 3-month grooming process where Carl's father told him get the basement ready for that evening. And I'm like, "What's that all about? What's down in the basement?" I'm the curious kid. "What's going on in the basement?" I'd seen people go down in the basement, but I'd never been in the basement. And Carl's like, "Oh, don't worry about it. It's just the basement." So I ignored it. Well, that evening, prior to that, I knew something was happening to me because I knew I was being drugged in some way because I'd wake up in different clothing. But that evening, I had been drugged and I had been taken down to the basement, and I woke up in the middle of being raped. My arms were tied to the bedpost, and I remember looking over and seeing Carl's father's face just briefly, and then I went back out. And that registered for the first time that something sexual was happening, but we didn't talk about sex at home, which every parent needs to have that conversation with their kids about good and bad touch and all of that stuff. So, my little mind, I'm trying to comprehend what just happened to me. My body's hurting, it's showing signs of trauma, and it was it was suffering in silence. From
Yeah.
that point on, Carl's father was no longer the nice guy, the brother that I never had. He became very mean, and then the expectations kicked in, which I needed to comply with what I was being told to do. And I would push back. Oh, I would push back all the time, and God has given me this fighter spirit. I just didn't know at that time it was carrying me through a lot of stuff. But, he Carl's father said, "No, you are gonna continue to come to these parties because we recorded everything that we did." And, I'm like, "Okay, what does that really mean?" So, they were, in essence, recording every rape that was happening, and that was being used as blackmail. And again, I'm 15, I'm scared to death, I don't have words for what happened to me. There was no way I could tell my parents because I felt I would be labeled the bad kid, and I was being told by these people my parents would not love me anymore, and that we would be homeless and it would be my fault. Then I just became really depressed, but I was already a shy child that spent a lot of time in my bedroom. So these signs that you say, well, your child's behavior is going to change, they're going to become more isolated. I was already that way. So that was
Yeah.
not a red flag. So eventually this continued to happen. I would push back. My parents' cars would be egged. Their tires would be slashed. Somebody would climb over our 6-foot fence, break our lock, let our dog loose many, many times. I knew what that meant. My parents were like, well, who's messing with this? What teenage kid? Yeah, but I knew what it was. And then my parents would make me get a job during the summer, and so I thought, "Okay, this is a way to stop this," right? Uh, but it wasn't. They would know my work schedule, but because Carl was a really cute guy, I think he sweet talked whoever the other teenagers were in the restaurants. I worked at Denny's one year and Baskin Robbins one year. They knew my schedules because I would be like, "No, I can't come over this weekend. I gotta work." And they'd say, "No, you don't. We know your schedule." So I had no way out. Then at 18, so for 15 to 18, I lived at home. I was sold on the weekends and during the summer, and nobody knew. Nobody knew anything.
No
Just
one had a clue.
oh, nothing, nothing. The way that I tried to get my parents' attention
Mhm.
was, these angry outbursts, and I'd yell at them, I hate you," because I was trying to find some way to have a conversation, open the door, but I needed them to open that conversation up because I had no idea how, but it didn't work. They just thought I was being a teenager.
Mhm.
I would just let it go, and I'd go slam my door, and then I'd go back into my room.
Yeah.
So that didn't get their attention, and I'm not blaming my parents in any way because most parents are thinking nothing like this would ever happen to their kid.
Exactly.
So when I turned 18, I had 3 months of high school left, and my mother was getting on my case about going to college, and I told her I wasn't gonna go to college, and that really upset her because she was a professional woman. And so one weekend, she got really mad at me, and the reason I wasn't gonna go to college was because of what was happening to me. Had I been mentally capable and had more of a developed brain, I would have realized that probably would have stopped what was happening had I gone to college, gone
Yeah.
somewhere else. But, my brain wasn't developed enough to even think that. So she got mad at me and she said, "Okay, fine, you're an adult. You need to move out." And I'm like, "Okay, I'll move out at the end of the school year." She's like, "No, this weekend. You're an adult now. Go take care of yourself." Well, that really caught me off guard. So, of course, I reached out to all my friends and all these people I thought were my friends and like, "No, you can't stay here. No, no, no." And so I ended up at Carl's house. And so from the time I turned 18 until the end of that summer of 18, it was pretty brutal. And then from 18 until I was rescued at 21, I was sold to other traffickers. I When you go to the store next time, pick up something that has an expiration date on it. Every trafficked child has an expiration date, meaning that if that child is no longer requested, they're not making enough money for that trafficker, the trafficker's going to get rid of them. Three things are going to happen. One, they're going to get sold to another trafficker, which I was fortunate enough to be sold 3 other times, which is weird, but hey, I got to live. They're going to drug you up, kick you out on the streets, and you're going to be a doped young person, which we see on the streets all the time, or they're going to kill you. So those are the three things. And so I was sold a total, I had four traffickers during my 7 years, and one was a woman. She was pretty mean. And then my last trafficker, it was so bizarre. It was this high end trafficking ring. We were sold anywhere from $1,000 to $10,000 a night. The things that we were forced, and I say we because I wasn't the only girl in that apartment,
Yeah.
we were subjected to satanic rituals, to abuse. I mean, you're not talking just physical. Sometimes people would buy you, which in reality is what it is, and put you in a chair and get in front of your face and yell and cuss you out for hours and hours. This happened a lot with CEOs and high powered people who knew they couldn't do that to the people in their lives, so they
Yeah.
did it to us. Sometimes, in some ways, that was much more mentally disturbing. Onslaught of just these words coming at you. Because, the sexual act could be over quickly and you'd have a break and maybe they'd do it again. But the words, wow. Very influential people. I can't really say names because they're still alive. My attorney says no, but celebrities, politicians, doctors, attorneys, you name it. We would be required to play a role. So somebody would hire us and they want to go to some fancy event or they wanted to go to, like, we were flown all over the world, not just the United States. And we had a bodyguard with us so we could never leave. So it's kind of weird because, like, I've seen a lot of the world, but not the way I would want to see the world. But because I was forced to play a role this whole time. And one of them was Nice. No, it's up by Monaco. I can't remember which one it is, but that's where I saw this right away. Tons of older men with very young girls. And yeah, it's Cannes, where the Cannes Film Festivals are. Yeah. It was just like, wow, okay, so I'm not the only one involved in this. So trafficking is very lucrative for the trafficker. There are very few stringent penalties for buyers, which is shameful. And prostitution laws need to be divided. Right now, prostitution laws, at least in Arizona, include the person who is being prostituted, or in my case, trafficked, and the buyer. They're in the same law and they need to be changed and separated
Okay.
because here in Arizona, if somebody um, buys an adult, so somebody that's over 18, somehow automatically, if you're trafficked and you're 18, you're consenting to this per law, which you're not. And the laws are getting better. The police are doing a really good job of trying to understand trafficking. But the buyer often will get a slap on a hand, get charged a misdemeanor, pay a fine, and go out the door and do it again. Before they serve any tangible jail time of like a year or two, they have to be caught 3 times.
Oh my goodness.
And what's the odds of them getting caught 3 times, really? So that's where I got involved in legislation. And I'm like, this is not right. People who are trafficked are not choosing for this to happen to them. They have become so mentally manipulated, and then their will, like in my case, my will to live, I lost that years into this journey, and I knew I was going to die. It was just at the hands of who and when. But God put Pearl in my path. So the last place that I was at, this high-end trafficker with the other girls that were there, Pearl, her apartment was kind of diagonal, so she could see all the activity going in and out. Now, we were never ever sold in that apartment, but it was kind of the home base for the operations. A lot of
Yeah.
big burly guys that were the bodyguards and, then some of the traffickers. So there was a lot of men going in and out, and then the way that we were dressed, which we never dressed scantily. Nobody would ever have picked out the fact that I was being trafficked. I would dress professional, my appearance would be impeccable, I would just look like a young professional person.
Yeah.
But Pearl, she knew something was wrong. And with that particular trafficker, because I behaved, I was given the privilege to go and collect the mail unaccompanied. And so I would take my sweet time to go to the communal mailbox because it was my little bit of freedom.
Yeah.
And Pearl was there and she'd say, "Honey, I know something's wrong. Do you want to go?" And she'd always provide me a way out. And I was like, "No, I don't know who you are. Why are you talking to me? Just leave me alone. I know I'm going to die. Just leave me alone." And I had even made peace with the fact that I was going to die. I had just hoped it wasn't going to be too painful.
Yeah.
But she was persistent. And then one day I actually did walk away with her. And that changed my life forever. So
Oh my goodness.
that's what happened.
Oh my goodness.
This trafficking is happening all the time, and people just don't realize it. They don't realize the grooming aspect, that people
Absolutely.
still think a kid gets picked up off the street and that's how they get thrown into trafficking. I mean, that can happen, but it's not the majority of the kids that are trafficked. It's a grooming process. They create a relationship with that child.
That's what's so I mean, of all the things, what's so terrifying is you're just like in a regular everyday family, going to school, and you're talking about these horrifying things that could just be happening around the corner from us. That is just mind blowing. I'm just kind of at a loss for words because you do think like, oh, that's something I saw in a Lifetime movie, or, a kid's just like a dramatic kidnapping or something. But, oh my goodness, this is like well thought out, an entire world organization of things happening that we just don't believe could ever be happening anywhere that we are.
Right? Absolutely. And the fact is that as we speak, it's happening to kids. I had the privilege a couple years ago of going into they call it a catfishing room. So that it's a room with a bunch of computers and monitors all over the place. Groomers that are trying to start conversations with minors online, and how they were talking to like 10, 15 different kids at one time. And it was overwhelming to me. This is a huge industry. It makes a ton of money. And by the time if the minor even realizes what's happening, it's too late. Uh,
Mm,
they they start to believe that this person, who may or may not be the actual picture that they portray online. It could be a 60-year-old man showing a picture of an 18-year-old boy because he's talking to a 15-year-old girl online,
yeah.
and he's playing that role of an 18-year-old boy. So 15-year-old girl is infatuated. She becomes infatuated with the boy, and that girls are naturally loving, right? So it's easy to say it's easy for a girl to go online conversations to having a conversation for a couple months to maybe we'll talk on the phone. or to maybe, "Let's just meet in person. Yeah, you've been so nice to me. I love all
Yeah.
the things that you say. You're speaking my love language," and
Mhm.
then that's when they get taken.
I know you mentioned about how predators or groomers will use social media apps to kind of engage. Are there specific apps that this is typically happening on, or is it really just being cautious of social media use in general?
Be cautious of social media use in general. People would ask me years ago when apps became really, really popular with the young people, should I get to learn how this app works? And I said, by the time you figure it out, your child will have moved on to another app. So the groomers are really good at saying, well, let's move over to Snapchat. Oh, now let's move over to WhatsApp. Oh, let's move over to this app. Any app that allows the groomer to talk with the child um, is a danger. So really, if I had it my way, I would be like, nope, social media and apps are not until they're like 21, 22. You know, when the brain is more developed
Absolutely.
to spot danger. Um, yeah, the groomers prey on that fact that they're just young, they're seeking validation and worth, and everybody loves a compliment.
Yeah. Isn't that the truth?
Yeah.
I just have to, first of all, commend you for your strength. I can't even imagine the amount of times, even as you have to retell a story, you relive it in a sense. Like, even as you're talking, like, it pained me to see you talk about some of those things. And I know it doesn't ever go away in your mind. And like, you're being so selfless in a way to not just say, well, let me try to block this out. I'm moving on. I don't ever want to relive any parts of this again. But you are retelling something so horrific that happened to you to still help somebody else. And that is amazing that you're able to do that. That takes a lot of strength and just such a selfless person.
Well, one thing that I learned, everybody copes differently when they go through
Yeah.
any type of trauma. I learned how to separate my body and my mind and my emotions. I could separate them. I never got addicted to drugs or alcohol. I was able to mentally detach. And that's still what I do when I do these interviews and I talk about it because I know God saved me for a reason, and believe me, I fought against saying anything for a really long time. You're talking 25 years, and I realized one day I'm alive. I should be dead many times over. I've been shot, I've been stabbed, I've been beat up. I shouldn't be here. And I'm in the period of my life that I have nothing to fear. I know what it's like to get close to death. But I don't want another child to experience that. So I'm
Yeah.
willing to go into that separation zone for a while. And then what I do, like after this, I decompress and I bring myself, these are techniques I've learned. I bring myself back together and then I do some self love at the end of the day. But I choose to do this because the only way it's going to stop is for survivors to speak up. And we have a lot of survivors now, just here in Arizona and across the nation, that are finally we're ready to talk and we're making great strides in what we're doing in legislation and it's crazy. So last session in 24 here in Arizona, they have what's called a vacator law.
Mhm.
This allows an individual who is trafficked but was charged with prostitution or some other crime that was nonviolent while they were being trafficked. Myself and a representative, we got that passed in Arizona last year, which now allows a survivor to petition a judge in the jurisdiction where that charge happened to say, hey, I was trafficked. Can you set that charge aside? Go on, and they can, clear a background check and become a teacher or a nurse, something that has that. So that was a big victory this year. So in 26, we're ramping up now. We at Pearl at the Mailbox, I have just one person, but I call her we because we work really well together. She and I are working to get a vacator law in every state, either updated or one in place. And then at the federal level, because I've testified before the United States House and Senate on trafficking. And we're working on a bill called the Trafficking Survivors Relief Act for survivors who were charged with a federal crime but were being trafficked, like a robbery or such. And hopefully we can get that passed this session. I don't know, but we're sure going to try.
It sounds like you are doing amazing work, and I wanna get into Pearl at the Mailbox, what exactly you do at the organization, what type of resources do you offer, and how did you start? But I wanna ask one quick question because sometimes I think this is a misconception. I know a lot of times you mentioned, well, the girls that were involved or seeing, young ladies or young teen girls. Is there an industry that's prevalent with boys as well? Or is this I think sometimes there's a misconception there that, "Oh, this is just little girls and my little boys can just run wild and free, nothing's going on with them." Is is there an industry for young boys as well? Can you talk a little bit about that just briefly?
Sure. Yes, there is. And I always just say girls because that's kind of where my focus is, because uh, that happened to me as a girl. And I have that one male survivor now who's willing to talk. But yes, boys are groomed and trafficked at a younger age, but for a shorter period. So you're talking 3, 4 little ones. Girls are trafficked now, they're saying, and it gets younger every year,
Did you
11.
3 or 4 years old?
Uh-huh. Yeah, a lot of that's done by familial trafficking, so a parent is selling their child for sexual abuse. Mhm. I know, it's horrible. Shame on them, but, yes, the boys are trafficked younger age, not as long, and girls are trafficked more early puberty and longer.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. There are sick people in this world, and they need to all be behind bars.
Oh my goodness. So tell us about Pearl of the Mailbox. Tell us about your organization. How did you come about starting it? And what all do you offer and what all do you do?
Sure. So Pearl at the Mailbox came about because I was just tired of the lack of protection for survivors, the lack of accountability for the buyers, the weak laws. And I said, you know what? I need to name it in honor of Pearl, who gave me a way out to be able to do that. So that's why it's Pearl at the Mailbox.
Yeah.
We are grooming prevention. We
Hmm.
wanna stop it before it ever turns into trafficking. Because once a child goes into trafficking, now it's almost impossible to get them out. I was very lucky that I had somebody that did. Most people choose not to get involved these days, so a minor or even an adult that's being trafficked has a really hard time getting out. So we, along with legislation, we last month launched the Arizona Grooming Prevention Hotline. So parents or those with questions about what grooming is, or in Arizona, our lawmakers couldn't decide the definition for grooming, so they have thought about it. So it's called child enticement now. But we have these conversations, and we actually have one very active case going right now that the minor is actually in the grooming process, and now we've got Homeland Security and the police involved, so I know this hotline will work. So we've started in this state, and then, eventually we'll do it nationwide, but I need to go kinda slow with that. So that's what we do, and we travel to DC 3 or 4 times a year to work on legislation. And then, of course, down here at the Capitol in Arizona, when it's legislative session, I'm here now and I do a lot of speaking. I travel the country and speak and share my story and educate others to realize that it could happen to anybody's child and that parents need to have these conversations. Even if it's uncomfortable conversations, you need to have it and have it often. And in some way, maybe even scare your kid that you don't know who you're talking to online. You can't have 100 friends, even 50 friends online. You don't know these people.
Yeah.
You don't know these people. Having those conversations are important so that when they are online, Because I don't need social media is not the enemy. It's just the enemy has used social media for their darkness, you know?
That's a powerful, yeah.
So the kids can learn how to use social media in a positive way. That I always his name is Josh and he runs smartsocial.com.
Hmm.
He teaches kids how to use social media in a positive way so that when they apply to college or a job, their footprint is a positive and clean one.
I love that.
Yeah.
And you said smartsocial.com.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
That is amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. He does a really good job. So I just continue to plug along with and I got the book. Here it is. Pearl at the Mailbox. This is my grooming story. So this and it's non-graphic. It just shows how I was groomed over 3 months and a reader can see how my allegiance is leaning towards my groomer and not my parents. And I'm working on my next book. It's called 6,000. And that's because I was sold close to 6,000 times in my 7 years. And that one will be not graphic, but more detailed to really hit home to the young people that this can happen to you and you don't
Yeah,
want it to. So be cautious as to who you speak to online and who you trust.
absolutely.
Yeah.
You mentioned a few times about parents having different conversations with their kids, whether it's, connecting with them, being smart about social media use, just kind of what's going on with their life. I've found when talking, especially about a lot of parenting topics and being in education, that a lot of times parents just don't necessarily have the tools or the language to approach these conversations. They don't necessarily know what to say or how to start it. And I'm just curious from your perspective, as you have had these conversations, have you found that to be the case also? Is that parents don't necessarily, they just don't know how to start the conversation or what to say or how to talk about good touch, bad touch, and who you're talking to online in a way to really bring their kid in. Is that something you've experienced as well?
Yes, and I think this all needs to start at a very, very young age where parents go, "This is good touch. Good touch. I'm going to kiss you on the cheek. Bad touch." And then they go through the body so the child learns quickly what a good touch, what a bad touch is. And then they also learn proper name for anatomy. Because heaven forbid the forensic interviewer from the police department has to interview a 3-year-old and they use the word cookie or something, it's not going to help the case. So proper anatomy, being rude in public. I see this all the time. You can go through the grocery store and your little toddler is walking along with you. And most people have good intentions and they come up and they're like, child is so cute, so precious, and they wanna touch the kid. The parent needs to say, "Stop. That's my child, don't touch my child."
Mm,
To send a clear message. We do not need to be nice to other people when we have our kids around them. Our
yeah,
job is to keep them safe. That's the parent's job all the way until they graduate and beyond, but, especially those years where they're at home. And then always having those conversations about stranger danger in a way. So young kids at a playground, you want the kids to play with the other kids, but some kids actually migrate towards adults. It's interesting. They just do. And that's where you have that conversation with your kid. You don't know that person. They may be nice, but you don't know them. The kid's not going to understand that. What do you mean I don't know them? They're right in front of me. I see them, but you just keep bringing them back.
yeah,
And then when the social media starts coming in, I mean, you can create a contract if you want, but most kids are going to violate the social media contract. That's just the way kids are. But it's talking about um, really the people that you interact with online are truly your friends. Have every password, you have every login, you have everything. Now there are apps or, safety features like Bark and stuff, but your job as the parent is the one to make sure you know what's going on with their phone. And if they violate the agreement or whatever you say, that phone's yours. You take it. you take it from them. And no social media, no phones, no tablets, no computers ever in a bedroom, behind a closed door, everything. It's always in public, so you can look over what they're doing. If they're doing schoolwork, watch too. The thing now is kids have a different language. Like I have a list, I can't get it right now, but it's a list of the slang that the kids use now that
It is an entirely different language.
yeah. Yeah, and
What
so
you say?
yeah, well, some of it's geared to a sexual nature, so you could lean over the kid's phone and not have any idea what they're saying, but
Yeah.
it could be a language saying, "Send me a picture, do this or that," and, yeah, and it's hard because a teen always pushes the boundaries, and so if you have to be the bad guy, you be the bad guy.
Yeah, it's better to be overly involved in it instead of just, like, I guess, regretting it later, and I think a lot too, that parenting comes with so many different facets, but I remember one time hearing this author, and he was giving an interview, completely different topic, but he was talking about how he was absent-minded, he went for a run, and he lost his keys somewhere along the run, and he came back, and there was a young lady there, like I don't know, maybe late teens, early 20s, and she gave him a ride to, like, another place so he can get all this worked out. And so the interviewer said, "Well, did you tell her, like, this is really dangerous? You should never do this?" And he said, "No, because I didn't want to be the reason that she was distrusting of the world." And so I say that to say for parents, I know sometimes parents can teeter on, well, do I even want to introduce that this is bad touch or that this because now the child is thinking like they are aware of these things that are happening. And it's like, man, I want to keep my kid in a bubble, just living with joy as long as I possibly can. And I'm not saying that's wrong. I'm not saying it's right, but I understand like kind of as parenting, you're catching it from all different
Yes.
areas. But listening to you, it's like I want to encourage, like if this is you, the parent listening, and hearing your story, Sherry, if you are on the edge of thinking like I don't want to introduce because I don't want them to be distrusting of the world, like it is so important. It is the difference between life and death. So if you have to play the bad guy, I mean, that's just part of the role, you know, it's
Well,
part of it.
you teach children not to touch a hot stove because of the consequences. You teach the child not to run in front of a car because of the consequences. Why are you not teaching your child about potential grooming? Because there's
That's a great point.
consequences.
Great point. Great point. Well, how can we support Pearl at the mailbox? Do you have a website? Are you on social media where people can follow you and stay connected to what all you're doing? And how can we specifically support your cause and organization?
Thank you. We do pearl at the mailbox.org, all spelled out. That's our website. We're on Facebook, same name, X and Instagram, all same names, and then my LinkedIn as well. But I'm not on that much. So if you send me something there, I will probably forget it. Because of the sensitivity when it comes to the grooming trafficking hotline, we don't have the ability to use volunteers for anything that we do. So we are always looking for those that want to come along and financially sponsor with us. I will never take a government grant because of the strings attached. So we are self funded and donor supported. So that helps us pay for travel when we go to DC and we work on these bills. Um, That's very helpful that way. We have a $10 a month sponsor program where you can just pay $10 a month, and it really helps us a lot to be able to go further and spread the message further. We're starting to work with Missouri on some of their laws, and there'll be a couple. We'll probably be doing 5 states for 26. So we will be working with the legislature to start getting these laws updated across the country eventually. So that's how really and of course, pray for us always. We need strength, we need courage and energy because there's times it gets exhausting. That, you know yeah, I just got that fighting spirit and I I have no fear
Yeah.
because I have lived through the worst. And so I'm on a mission now. So we could, if you anybody has a speaking opportunity online or at an event, I'm always happy to come and speak as well and be able to have open conversations. I know people have questions and I'm always happy to answer.
Awesome. Um, well, it reminds me of that quote, everyone, you can't do everything, but everyone can do something. So I hope that as you're listening, that you've found a way that works for you to plug in and support what Sherry's doing. We may not all be on the front lines proposing legislation, going to Congress, but we can support Sherry's cause. She mentioned praying for the organization. There's a $10 a month pledge that you can do to support the work that they're doing. So I hope that as you listen today, you listen and hear her story, but you're moved enough to put that listening into action and support the work that they are doing. Sherri, thank you so much for being here. So absolutely glad to have you. Um, and I'm just thankful for your strength and your courage to continue to go out and work towards your mission. I end every episode with the same question. So I want to ask you, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received, or a piece of advice that you would give to someone that you deeply care about?
Every child is a gift from God. And when we get a gift, we treasure it, right? So we need to treasure our kids and protect them.
Hannah's Hive, thank you so much for tuning in. I will be sure to link the connection information for Sheri and her organization in the notes. So please feel free to click down there and figure out how you can support the amazing work that Pearl at the Mailbox is doing. I pray that this episode today has been educational and beneficial in a way to push you into action. If you're a parent, to push you into the action that you need to really connect with your kids, and figure out how you can approach some of these tough conversations. As always, I appreciate you listening. And until next time, everyone, take care. Then that's it. I'm out of here. So much for joining us on this episode of the Hey Hannah podcast. We hope that you found inspiration, insight, and encouragement in our conversation today. If you enjoyed this episode and want to stay connected with us, be sure to like, subscribe, and review the Hey Hannah podcast. Your feedback helps us reach more people and spread our message of love and wisdom. You can also follow us on social media at Hey Hannah Podcast. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok to stay updated on all the latest episodes, behind-the-scenes exclusives, and engaging content. And for those of you who prefer the visual experience, catch the video versions of our podcast on our YouTube channel. Just search Hey Hannah Podcast and hit that subscribe button to never miss an episode. For even more Hey Hannah goodness, visit our website at www.heyhannahpodcast.com. There you'll find updates, bonus content, and join a community that embraces you with open arms. Your continued support truly means the world to us. Together, let's spread love, share wisdom, and honor every precious moment. Because here at Hey Hannah, we believe that life is meant to be lived well. Remember, a new episode of the Hey Hannah podcast is released every Wednesday, so mark your calendars and be sure to tune in. Thank you again for being a part of Hannah's Hive. Until next time, take care.
Entertainment.